it go. Poor guy. Aloha Maui Nui! Hey, this is Josh Porter.
And Jason Burkhardt, arms up, everybody. It's the SolarCoaster.
Episode number
39.
39, there it is.
39.
That's right, it's 39. Okay, episode number 39, the Enphase story.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting show. We have a couple of the founding members of
Co-founders,
Enphase, right? The co-founders of
the
Enphase.
fellas that built it.
Right.
Right?
Going to be here live talking to us, which is really cool.
Martin and Raghu.
Correct.
Yeah. And so yeah, we're gonna dig into this story. Really excited about that. Did it start in a garage? I tend to see them sitting there tinking around, or was it a, what kind of a startup story was it? We're gonna hear all about their amazing product line. I mean, they're really, a household name as far as solar is concerned. It's kind of Enphase. There's a couple of companies out there. Enphase is a household name, and certainly here in Hawaii, there's a lot to dig into, and both. The early days, what they got going on nowadays, and then the futures, they've got some really cutting-edge tech. So we're
they're going to announce some stuff on the show here that's going to be really, really interesting.
Oh, I can't wait. Right? Okay, so let's get through some housekeeping here. We are the SolarCoaster, renewable energy focused talk show right here in lovely Maui County. We can be found Fridays at 1:05 p.m. on KAOI 1110 AM. 96.7 FM Central, 96.5 FM West Side, 98.7 FM Country. For today, it is a call-in show typically, but for today, please steer your comments, if you would be so kind, to our website, solar-coaster.com.
Yep. Go down the bottom of the solar-coaster.com homepage, and there's a form you can fill out. Right there comes directly to our email, and we can get your questions there and get them on the air for you.
Yeah, and there'll be some social media, posts related to this. So you have comments or ideas about some of the technology. We already posted a couple of precursor kind of ones earlier, and some of our buddies were like, "Hey, I don't know if that tech's possible." So it's some contentious stuff, which is fantastic. We like that here on the coaster.
Always good.
Ups
and downs.
Yeah. So we are sponsored by a great stable of companies: Maui Solar Project, Tabuchi Electric America, Sonim Battery, Pika Energy, and so these guys really. These amazing companies really are the kind of foundation upon which the SolarCoaster has been built. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sponsors.
All right. And then there are some podcasts out there. If you're podcast people, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn. We are getting a little bit of traction here or there. So do check it out and let us know your feedback.
Yeah, download us, listen to us on the subway, whatever you're doing.
Share it with your friends and buddies and all that.
Friends.
One of the coolest parts of that, Jay, is really the installers from around the country that had, found us probably through the SIA episode, the Solar Energy Industries Association episode with Abigail Rosshopper. And you get a guy from Brooklyn at Brooklyn Solar Works like, yeah, I dig
sharing
it.
Stuff
or
out. Yeah, exactly. The guy from Maine. A friend of Pika.
Yeah, that I like a lot. And I've had a couple of others from California recently. I've been getting to know the kind of, people on the front lines.
We've got a better reach these days. We better stay on it.
Yeah, installers seem to dig it. You got 250,000 people out there working in this industry. The solar industry in the United States. You got 12 times the growth rate of jobs of other areas of the economy, something like that.
Yep,
we saw in an article this morning. So yeah, that's it. So let's jump on board with the SolarCoaster. You ready to go?
Absolutely. Here we go.
News and events section. We're going to start out with this here. So there's some really fun stuff going on nationally. We have this article in cleantechnica.com. The San Diego Padres is getting a big old honkin' solar system. What are the numbers here?
The MLB's largest solar power system, 716 high-efficiency, 470-watt sun power modules. So SunPower makes these large. We actually sat down and there's a photo here.
Yep.
We actually sat down and counted them. These are not even like the standard commercial panels. These are bigger than that. How many cells?
Well, the funny thing about SunPower and these types of the types of architecture of SunPower and then the LG. Those are the only two panels that I know that have this kind of architecture. And I'm not sure what the name of it is, but we just generally call it backside contact, right? So basically, there's none of that like silver paste, electrical paste on the front of the silicon, right?
Right.
So it's just clear, typically it's really dark, absorbing silicon, really pure silicon. And on the back, there is a copper plate. Or in the case of LG, it's not copper, I think it might be aluminum, right? So the point of this is that those cells are actually a little smaller in dimension than the other types of cells, right? So for that reason, when we say a standard size solar panel for SunPower is a 96-cell solar panel as opposed to the 60. But it's the same thing. It's the same type of surface area, right? But they're using smaller cells. But overall, they're getting more wattage, right? It's a little confusing. But so in solar panels, you have residential size, which are typically those 60 cells. In the case of SunPower, it's 96.
Yep.
And they also have commercial. In the case of conventional panels, it's 72 cells commercial. And in the case of SunPower, it's 128. So we just counted them.
Yep, 128 cells. Now, because of those are smaller cells, are they less resistance? That's my understanding.
Oh, that would make sense. I'd never thought of it that just now.
That's one of the reasons why they can get to that kind of wattage.
That's a contributing factor.
Contributing factor.
That's a good point, Jay. Now, you see, I never drew that connection from all the advances in the split.
Well, we've seen
cells.
a lot of other manufacturers recently splitting their cells, doing those half cell modules, and that's exactly the reason they give for it, is you can get some efficiencies just by splitting the cells and taking the electrons earlier.
There you go. You're a smart cookie, Jay. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
But 470 watts, so these are some really big, this is nearly a 500-watt solar panel. That's pretty amazing.
Yep.
So the system will generate more than, all the typical kind of, little bullet points here. The system will generate more than 12 million kilowatt hours over the next 25 years. Okay. So
yeah, $4.1 million overall.
Savings, right?
Savings.
And the project costs about $1 million.
Yep.
Probably pre-tax.
That's pre-tax. That's a pre-tax number.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And one thing we noticed here was that San Diego, the home of Padres, has and I'm gonna, we got some friends in San Diego. I hope they're listening. Derek Dunlap, Jennifer Dunlap, a handful of other good friends in San Diego. San Diego apparently is targeting for 100% renewables by
2035. I thought we were at 2045.
Yeah, 2045. So they're going to get 100% renewables 10 years before Maui County.
I don't think that's accurate.
No way.
What the mayor said is we're going to get there in 5 years.
Wheeling.
After Wheeling is passed, that's right.
Wheeling. So the mayor's...
That's the word of the day in here, if you haven't noticed.
Last week, the mayor's episode was aired, and we were able to, hear directly about this new concept, Wheeling. Not new concept.
It's not really new, yeah. It's something that we actually used to be certainly possible, and then they outlawed it, basically, because the utility wanted that monopoly.
Yeah, something along those lines. And so we're really in a place right now where the legislation may change again.
Yep.
And Wheeling will enable us to have, according to Mayor Arakawa, 100% renewables within 5 years.
And again, Wheeling, for people that aren't familiar, allows you to export electricity across property lines. So even if you owned 2 adjacent lots, it's illegal to run power from one to the other.
Right.
But if Wheeling goes through, then you would be able to do that. And that allows microgrid concepts where you have a subdivision who they all share in each other's batteries. Even if your battery system is down for repair, you'll still have electricity because you're borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbors.
There you go. Microgrid, right? Community microgrids. Yep. It's all part of the same process.
Yeah, so that Wheeling legislation needs to go through.
Needs to go through. Yeah, we got to dig into that. I bet you Chris Lee's behind it over at the Ledge. It'd be great to get him on air one of these days too, talking about Wheeling.
Absolutely.
So now that we're kind of segueing over to Hawaii, there's a lot of stuff going on in Hawaii. Last week, the first utility scale solar system was approved and ready to be turned on in Maui County, 2.8 megawatts. I mean, this is some groundbreaking stuff. And that's just Maui, and across Hawaii, we have an article here. NRG breaks ground on 110 megawatt PV portfolio in Hawaii.
Yep, absolutely huge. 3 separate sites. Kawailoa,
You want to give that a shot?
I can't read it. It's too small.
Kawailoa, Waipio, and Mililani.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, each one of these sites added up to a total of 110 megawatts, but that's a lot of energy. We just said ours was how long? How much? 2.8. The first one.
Oh, the first one we have here in Maui, just above Lahaina Luna,
so
right?
It's 2.8 versus 110.
Yeah,
it's an
remarkable.
Awful lot of power.
And it says once completed, 3 projects will generate enough energy to power almost 32,000 homes each year. 32,000 Oahu homes each year. This is the largest block of grid-scale solar power ever installed in Hawaii. Not a small thing.
No, absolutely not. Largest installation, 49 megawatts. That's the Kawailoa project. Will be the largest solar project in the state.
Wow. And
it's located on the former sugarcane land owned by Kamehameha Schools.
I'll tell you what, that's really
what a good use of that.
That's really exciting stuff. And if we look a little bit deeper into this, I mean, I think we're definitely that 2045 conversation. To me, you start deploying systems of that size, and 2045 starts to shrink, get a little bit closer, right?
Well, yeah, actually, down at the bottom of it, they already expect the NRG expects to have all 3 projects completed in 2019. So that's way sooner than your 2045 goal, and they're literally going to be busting it out in the next 2 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so we are. I think we're going to take a commercial break. Are we about there?
Yeah, just about
that. We're going to take a commercial break.
When we get back,
jump right back in.
We'll talk to our callers.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Aloha and welcome to Maui Solar Project. It is easy to feel rejuvenated just stepping outside on a magnificent Hawaiian day. Maui Solar Project is here to help harness that energy you feel in your body and use it to power your homes and businesses. As lore tells us, Maui harnessed the sun so as to slow its path across the sky. Join Maui Solar Project as we harness the sun's energy and slow Hawaii's dependence on fossil fuels. Call Maui Solar Project at 269-2352. MauiSolarProject.org.
Tabuchi Electric, a leading worldwide inverter manufacturer, presents the second generation of the eco-intelligent battery system, the IBIS. Tabuchi's grid-friendly system includes a high-efficiency inverter, stackable batteries, and integration with Jelly software for the most adaptable battery storage system on the market. The system is optimized for energy management and cost performance. Maximize your solar investment with Tabuchi's electric eco-intelligent battery system.
The Sonnen Battery Eco is an energy storage solution that utilizes intelligent energy management software. The system is available in a variety of storage capacities and allows for expansion. Sonnen Battery Eco allows you to save money by harvesting energy from your solar PV system and using that stored energy when rates are more expensive. Sonnen Battery Eco is specifically designed to provide you and your family peace of mind in the event of power outage. Our unique power detection system will sense outages in real time and automatically switch over to battery power. See Sonnen Battery Eco at sonnen-battery.com.
MIT founded Pika Energy, makers of the Pika Energy Island, a smart energy management system that uses solar panels, lithium batteries, and intelligence to manage your energy and keep you powered even during outages. With a clean, intelligent alternative to grid power, you're in control of your energy future. Pika's Energy Island lets you manage electrical costs with HECO-ready self-supply functions. Pika's largest battery, the Harbor Plus, offers 16 kilowatt hours of stored energy and can power loads of up to 10 kilowatts. And if you need more capacity, just add a second or even third Harbor Smart battery to the same system for a maximum of 48 kilowatt hours of usable storage. Pika Energy, own your power. To learn more, visit pika-energy.com. Okay, so that's a great run from our sponsors, and we really appreciate the sponsors to keep the coaster on the air.
Absolutely, thanks for keeping us rolling.
Okay, so we're going to roll right into an interview that we've been excited about for a long time, Jay.
Yep.
Enphase co-founders Martin Fornage, I believe, and Raghu Martin.
Yep.
And so Enphase is just a household name, and it's a company that has...
Out here, it certainly was. I mean, they were I don't want to say at the height of it, but they were like the only game in town when NEM was really being rolled out in Hawaii. And I know so many people who are legacy NEM series systems, they are all Enphase.
Everyone,
so everybody knows the system. Everybody's used the products. They're reliable. They've been running here for years, and we all know our environment is not pleasant for electronics, so they've kind of proven themselves as being worth the price of admission.
Absolutely. So let's hear from Martin and Raghu. I think we got Raghu, and I think we got him right here on the line. Okay.
Hey guys, how are you guys doing?
Hey, aloha, Martin and Raghu. This is Josh Porter and Jay Verkart out here at the SolarCoaster. Thanks so much for calling in.
We're delighted to be on the air.
Wonderful, wonderful. So yeah, we can't thank you enough. We're all kind of very acquainted with Enphase. A lot of our friends and family have Enphase in their homes. I personally have been out to the factory, or rather the offices in Petaluma, so I got a sense for how the company looks and feels and operates. And so we're basically a renewable energy themed talk show right here in Maui County, and we want to be able to tell the story of Enphase. So it's an opportunity for you to share with us a little bit about your background and kind of where things are going.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you very much for having us on the air, and more importantly, thank you to everybody there for using Enphase. I think it's very exciting, and I cannot say enough. But I talk about Hawaii whenever I'm on the road talking to other people, and so it's quite stunning when you drive down the road there that virtually every second or third house has solar on it. It is absolutely amazing. And of course, it doesn't help that it's arguably one of the most beautiful places in the world. So combination is
I totally get it. And it's interesting too, because I was just thinking as we were introducing this segment, I was thinking about how Enphase is really kind of the only one of the only solar brands out there that's literally already a household name, at least in Hawaii, right? And I guess I was thinking, I was like, why is that? It's kind of what you were just saying. It's like we have we can get used to, I guess, right, Jay? We can get used to the idea that one in every three, 4, 5 houses there have solar on them, but it's not always that way across the country yet, and it's coming soon, of course, but not quite yet. So yeah, Enphase is definitely a brand that people are aware of, and so we're really looking forward to digging deep and learning a little bit more, giving some background color on how it all got started and where things are going these days. So maybe you could I'm sure you'll do a much better job than I would. So maybe you give us a sense on some of the beginnings of Enphase. Would that be cool?
Sure. Yeah, let me start, and I'll give a quick background about it, and then Martin can jump in and articulate kind of what our vision is, where we're going, and et cetera. So both Martin and I, we've been in technology our whole careers, and we're both engineers, electrical engineers. Our how should I say, professional paths crossed in 1998 when we were both at a telecommunications startup. And that startup subsequently got acquired by Cisco, and then went off and did a few other startups separately, but remained really good friends. And then it was, I think, December of 2005, we were coming off of yet another startup, and we were doodling on a whiteboard when Martin said, "Hey, listen, why don't we do something in solar?" And I've got this idea for something called as a microinverter. And I remember asking him that day, "Really? Solar? How big could that be?" So that's how visionary I was. So, and then remember staying up all night, just researching it, thinking about it, Googling it, and thinking about it, and it was quite stunning how we were seeing those early days of solar, and how we were starting to see the trends. So that's how really two of us got together and started thinking about it.
And that's in 2005, absolutely. Right? You'd said 2005-ish.
Sorry, you guys cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that 2005 that you were getting together at that point? Did you say?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
We started the first my first draft on my first notebook of December 22nd, 2005.
So the timing there was really very fortuitous, because in 2008, I think, is when we started to see the ramp up of solar in Hawaii. So you had that product line ready to go. And I remember when it came out, we were all excited about it. So, wow, that's the story. Amazing.
Yeah, correct. We were very lucky, frankly, to hit the timing as we did. It was not engineered at all. Yeah. And it turns out that 2005, 2006 was a great time to start a renewable energy company, because the market was very small but growing very fast. And because the investment community as well was had a very large appetite for investment in that industry.
Wow!
And when we started looking at it, we said, "Wow, look, we are quite. We feel very strongly that everything should be distributed, right? We're big believers in distributed architecture." And we said, "Look, it should be done as a microinverters make complete sense." But the first thing you go figure out is, look, somebody else had done micros in the past, and they had all failed. And we said, well, why did it fail? And started looking and investigating and thinking about it closely, about why it failed. And that's when Martin's idea of, hey, this has got to be a digital topology. It's got to be completely done digitally. It's got to be done with semiconductors. It's got to be made extremely, extremely reliable. It's got to have communications. It's got to have a lot of software in it. And those were kind of key ingredients that were needed to make this successful, and those key ingredients were missing in the past.
I see. Wow. Yeah. So there were some microinverters before, but they were based on a different form of, I think you said, topology, a different type of structure. And now that you moved in this direction, this was what enabled it to be successful.
Correct. There was actually a company based in Europe that started deploying a microinverter back in mid-2000, early 2000 timeframe. But the engineering was not robust enough to be able to survive on a rooftop for a long period of time. So I believe that the vast majority of the units failed within years, 1 year or maybe a couple of years after installation, and that really gave a bad name to this product actually. So we had to overcome that when we got online. Yeah. The other problem was it's much harder to make a cost-effective product when you have many of a small box rather than when you have a large box. So the economics of it's very important. It's critical to engineer the product with a low economic base to begin with, rather than miniaturize a large-scale inverter and make a small one. That has been proven to be a very bad idea. You want to design a microinverter from scratch, like you don't know anything about anything else.
I see.
Rather than trying to miniaturize something which is large.
That's kind of what a lot of people did, and I think a few other companies. And in fact, some of the new microinverter people still make that mistake. Is let me take a 5 kilowatt inverter.
Wow.
And shrink it down, shrink all the components down, turn it into a 250 watt inverter. That's exactly the wrong way to do it.
Right.
So you have to look at it as a new problem, as a fresh problem, and try to solve it in an optimal way.
That makes perfect sense.
Without knowing anything of what a large inverter looks like.
Yeah.
So that led to incredible amount of innovation that Martin and team did. It's just actually quite mind-boggling if you look at how much IP, intellectual property, we have developed in coming up with the whole solution set.
Okay, wow, that's exciting to hear those early kind of considerations.
Yeah, that would be really cool to be kind of fly on the wall
right.
all the time.
Right. Absolutely,
absolutely.
And the fact that the product, I remember when the product was brought into market, it really changed the way, from an installation community perspective, it really changed the way we installed. Right. So in the past, it actually provided a lot of flexibility. The microinverter in design, and clients don't necessarily think about that side of the puzzle, right? So on the client side, on the user side, we could say, you have panel level optimization. That's great, right? And on the and great transparency in data, so you're able to see what's going on in your individual panels. But on the installer side, before that we had to there's the stringing that's going on with the central inverters, and if you have multiple azimuths, that just means directions of the roof, then you have some complexities in being able to install, and you have to do a little bit more design work. But Enphase kind of made it really straightforward. It was like, it was kind of plug and play, and the installation community just loved it. They're like, that's our ticket. And we went and ran with it, and that was a big part of the growth of the initial stage of residential solar in Hawaii.
Yeah, part of that is what I want you to explain there. I mean, what's the difference between, for those that don't know, the standard string inverters versus microinverters? What's the difference?
Well, some of the fundamental differences are that, a central inverter is basically on the side of your house, right? And you have DC being generated up on your roof, and that energy is being brought down. In the case of Hawaii, it's being brought down in a metal raceway. It's a requirement for DC. And the inversion's happening on the side of your house, right? All at one place, one location. Okay. But if a panel goes out, it could compromise the rest of that string because it's in series. And
like Christmas lights.
Yeah, like Christmas lights, right? One goes out, the rest of them go out, or the rest of them are compromised in some way. And so, when microinverters came along, if one went out, it was a totally different ballgame, right? One goes out, you know which one it is.
Yeah, they report, right? I mean, they actually go back and tell you exactly how much they're producing and everything else. I get one of those sheets. That's the reason why I know.
Yeah, and then you're able to go up there and you're able to replace it and diagnose it pretty quickly. And then you're also, basically the rest of the system continues to function as it is meant to function. Right. So that was an ease, and I think that also provided a degree of comfort in the user space, because we got to bear in mind, back in 2005, photovoltaics, it was a word we were introducing to the community, right? 2005, 2008. This was the territory where solar panels, really? What? That's for guys out in Hana that don't have any electric lines. What do you mean you're going to put it on my house in Kahului or in Waikiki, or what are you going to put it on my house? Yeah. But so it was a new product, and finding ways to help people feel more and more comfortable with that product line was really key. And I think Enphase was right at the helm of that, right at the beginning, the front of that discussion. So yeah. So great. So what was next, guys?
So, again, I think one of the things you hit upon that's really, really important is, as we think about the proliferation of solar, which, as we all know, is badly needed. I mean, we've got to go from, every third house in Hawaii to every house in Hawaii having solar, and every house in the mainland having solar. There are a few other things that become important. For example, we have to make it extremely simple to install, very simple to maintain, right? So as technology providers, that was a big driver that Martin had was driving to, is that we've got to drive simplicity, which means all of the complexity, these things are complex, have to be abstracted away from our partners, from our installer partners, as an example. That's why we strive very hard to make this completely simple and completely plug and play. But if you look at the actual design, if you look at the inside of a micro, and if you look at the operation of the device, it is spectacularly complex. Martin says, go ahead. I mean, your example of how difficult it is actually quite mind-boggling.
Yeah, when Raghu and I were in telecom industry and we were designing super high-speed fiber transmission systems for utilities, AT&T, whatever. This was very difficult to do, but the technologies, some of the technology that goes into microinverter is easily 10 times more complex than what goes into this monster $1 million plus type of equipment, right? So it's actually very interesting to see how the product is simple from the outside and how immensely complex it is inside.
Yeah.
And cost effective to boot.
Right.
Yeah.
So
wow.
that was a big consideration. The other big consideration was, especially as you think about places like Hawaii, the reliability requirements are actually quite amazing, given that you're in a pretty high salt content environment. It's hot. So trying to optimize performance, optimize cost, and optimize reliability. No wonder a lot of people, Martin, in the early days were telling us, forget it can never be done.
Yeah, because it's never been done.
Yeah, because it had never been done.
The reliability aspect is something that also took us by surprise. Coming from the telecom industry again, where you expect, 5 nines availability on a system, right? Meaning 99.999% of availability. It became obvious, painfully obvious after a few years that was actually not enough for this type of product. We had to create a product that was rock solid for all point of views, whether it was during installation, whether it's in operations, the stress that equipment receive when they're connected to grid. All these aspects have to be integrated into the design, and we have to understand the stress on every part in this box, whether it's mechanical, chemical, electrical, at any point of view, in a very accurate ways to be able to have a good product. And it's much more difficult than it looks like from the outside.
So
I actually remember the first time, it was in August of 2007, we had built a bunch of prototypes, and we put them on Martin's house, I think. And then we came back the next day, 8 a.m., and I think we had 6 of them or 8 of them. They were all gone.
Wow. Really? That's a picture we want to see, gentlemen, one of these days, hopefully. That's an exciting concept there.
Please tell me you still have one of those.
I do somewhere.
Yeah. And then we had to put a power analyzer on Martin's roof to go see what happened
because basically every day at 8 a.m. all the inverters will fail. And it turned out the utility was switching a capacitor bank on the line somewhere down the line every day at 8 a.m. and creating a specific waveform that will kill all the units. So anyway, we figured this out. We had to do a lot of introspection, and we actually had to gain a lot of knowledge on what type of waveform we expect to see on the grid side. Which is not documented anywhere, and then and surprisingly dangerous actually, and being able to use that for the design of all this technology and all the other technology we've done ever since.
It's interesting.
So we learn a lot along the way.
It's interesting that the way you're describing your process of development and your background in the telecom industry, it sounds like you've taken that kind of that feeling almost like a software company into this space, right? And then I remember being in Petaluma. I was fortunate enough to receive a guided tour maybe about 4 or 5 years ago from Ian Knox, And it was a really great experience. I felt that there was a lab with these really, and these engineers that were digging into different components, and then there was an area where they were taking systems and kind of digging into ones, then trying to figure out how to optimize them and look at the ones that they had there, and they had all these great systems, and it's in a really interesting community of people. And to me, it felt kind of like, this feels like a software company almost, like something in my mind, the way like a Silicon Valley company would look. You know what I mean? Right. So very cool stuff. Thank you for sharing that.
We're very much of a software company. One thing which also took us apart in 2006 certainly is that coming from telecom industry was very beneficial to us because solar at that time was considered to be 99% of a power conversion problem, and so it was basically products were designed by power conversion people. And coming from telecom, you do not deploy a single piece of equipment on a network without having monitoring, communication, all that stuff online 24/7, right? And of course, because we came from there, because we're going to go for a distributed architecture, we said we have to have all monitoring all the time of this equipment and being able to maintain this equipment remotely, right? And that was a major difference. At the time in 2006, I had actually a standard inverter at home, and the only thing you could get out of the inverter was basically two small lines on an LCD display, which had like 2 lines of 15 characters or something like that. And it was very difficult to know what was happening with that box. But my box was off at some point for weeks at the end, and it was very difficult to know why or what was going on with it, right? So we said, no, we don't want any of that. It has to be obvious to the end user that everything is working right, hopefully, and if something is not working perfectly well, we should know about it. And that was very changing. That changed the industry in a big way.
Yeah, we did. We actually took it, as Martin pointed out, even the device inverter itself, and as I mentioned early on, so it's a digital device. So we have the next generation of product is going to be almost a supercomputer type. A chip that's running on there that probably had more horsepower than when the space shuttle launched in 1980, right? By far, right? So that's how much computing capability that device has. But we turned the invention was that it's completely a digital device, which was a completely new revolutionary approach for power that we brought the industry. Couple that with communications, couple that with all that software that that the end user sees, we see. That combination is again very unique, and that's the Silicon Valley was built around that premise. Turn everything into the digital world. Turn everything to custom chips. On the heart of our inverter is a custom chip, and so it's a very software-centric view of the world.
Got it.
So the joke is the next release of software will actually be mining bitcoins on your roof.
Actually, really? I think that might be pegged in one of our future show slots right now. We're excited to talk about
Bitcoin or solar coin, whatever.
Yeah, there's something going on there. There's something going on there.
So to be clear, that's just a joke. Okay?
Yeah, we know.
So that's a great kind of that's exciting to hear the background and how things got started and kind of what the perspective is. And then, of course, that you landed on, that concept that you landed on allowed you to really grow, especially in this space out here in Hawaii, which was one of the first, early ramp-up adoption environments in the United States, primarily because we got great sun, we got really expensive electricity, and we have really generous tax incentives to help ramp those programs as well. So the math of it worked, and the technology was just, adopted quickly by the installers, and the home users really liked the idea of the transparency. And then it was like, just kind of gangbusters, right? And then we get to a place where I think right now, I was trying to run the numbers before. I think we have something in the territory of about 500,000 utility account users. That's just rough numbers on all the islands, excluding Kauai, here in Hawaii. And I think you guys have got a good chunk of that business. I don't know exactly what it is, but do you have a sense for how much of the penetration out here is Enphase?
It's hard to say, but it could be. I don't know. It's hard to say.
My guess is it's probably north of a third.
We have well over 1 million microinverters out there.
Yeah, yeah.
On Wahoo alone, we probably have 1 million microinverters.
Oh, right, because you have all multiples per roof. So you got a big big chunk of the existing business out here, and now we've got these new programs. So in 2015, I'm sure you're well abreast of what's going on in the Hawaii marketplace. It's really this kind of template for the nation in some respects. With these new programs.
Although we're still experimenting.
We're still we're doing a lot of experimenting for sure. But I mean, in 15, I guess, right? 2015, NEM finishes, and then we're said, okay. Then the utility says, okay, go ahead and do consumer self-supply, right? And then you can do batteries, right? Well, they didn't really exist that much.
The battery products really weren't ready.
Weren't mature
for that.
Yeah.
Right?
And then they offered a program called consumer self-supply, consumer grid supply, I should say, CGS, and that got eaten up real fast, kind of a small bucket per island. And now what's starting to move into place is something called They have these new programs, gentlemen. I'm not sure if you've heard these yet, but just to talk about them briefly. CGS Plus, which is they're discussing controls of the microinverters to basically limit export to certain times or characteristics.
Right. The utility wants to have an ability to curtail generation to the grid if they don't actually need it at the time.
Right. That's the broad strokes of it, right?
Yep.
And then NEM expansion, which people are super excited about because the early adopters, all those fellows out there that have, a lot of them have Enphase, and they went and bought a Tesla or a Leaf or a Bolt or whatever, and they got all this extra
the time that they installed this thing in 2008, 2009, maybe 2010, their energy profile has changed. I mean, all these electric vehicles are showing up. They're massive draws. They need more power than they ever used to. Maybe some of them had children.
Yeah, and I literally have friends that have 2 EVs right now. And they're like, how do I size my solar system? And I'm like, well, you have a NEM, that's great. But I can't do anything for you unless we get really creative, right? With like a separate, almost like an off-grid system.
Off-grid.
So there's a NEM expansion category that's been ordered by the PUC and is hopefully any day now going to be clarified by the utility. And there's also a smart export program. So you got these 3 kind of, I would say, fairly groundbreaking utility program categories. And I'm excited to see how Enphase is going to play a role here. My gut kind of tells me Enphase is going to be a major player again in this. So do you have any feedback on that or any ideas?
Yeah, in general, the way to think about it is like this, right? I think the days of where you put solar on and it's a dumb participant on the grid those days are gone, right? I think all of these things, the CGS Plus, NEM expansion, smart export, those are all functionally software, right? So it's a combination of systems being very intelligent, making autonomous decisions. You're giving them a profile, you're giving them a character, you're giving them a persona, and they behave in a certain manner. For example, it is zero export. Okay, you cannot export onto the grid at all at any point in time. That's a character as a persona. System gets a behavioral characteristic. You're going to see all of that happening as well, and that's all done through software. You tune the system to behave in that manner, coupled with all of the systems are all connected, hyper-connected. They're all talking to each other. They're all talking to the cloud. And the utility can come in and change that persona, change their behavior. So you're looking at systems that, as in a classic distributed architecture, how that evolves is all these endpoints, there's so much intelligence there that you can use that intelligence to tailor the behavior of those devices to the conditions that they're operating in, right? Sorry, I'm all over the place, but that's the general thesis of it. Is we can do all of these things are possible through software.
So there's a lot. So that's exciting because CGS Plus and NEM expansion, these 2 categories, are right around the corner, and there's a major appetite. And CGS Plus is a limited bucket, right? It's a kind of experimental. Let's try this program out thing. That's the way the utility likes to do these things. I think it's maybe 6 megs or something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah, and then so in NEM expansion, however, that's something that I'm getting calls all the time about. I heard you can expand, and not only in the residential space, in the commercial space as well. So there's some commercial NEM's maxed out at 100 kW AC, and we've got clients out there with more roof space saying we've got way more bill, and we want to be able to do more, more solar, right? We love that. We love the tax incentives. We love the return on investment. Let's do it. So how far out, gentlemen, do you think we are? If it's just a software issue, right? Which is what Jay, by the way, Jay's a software guy too, gentlemen. So, he's sitting over here going, nodding his head like, yep. But if it's primarily a software issue, how far out are we to be able to reprogram these devices and be able to create that new persona and meet these utility programs?
I think for us, it's as much about. It's not far. Short answer is not far. Okay. We can do this. It just depends on getting clarity on exactly what the requirements are. Mm-hmm. Get clarity on exactly what the requirements are. For us, it's writing code, writing software, and remotely pushing it onto these systems.
Got it.
And, in some instances, you may have to, the original systems didn't have any way of measuring consumption or net energy, for example. We were not doing that before. Now, of course, a lot of systems are being offered with storage. A lot of systems are being offered with CTs that measure what your net production, net consumption, consumption is, what your production is. So it's adding a few more sensors in there, and then it's a question of giving the systems the identity what they need to meet those requirements. So there is no major technology breakthrough required. It is simply a matter of understanding clearly what the requirements are and then pushing it.
That's encouraging to hear, because there's a lot of people out here right now that are ready to kind of pull the trigger on this technology. And I think part of the reason is that, there's been this general onboarding of storage on the grid thing that's been happening over the course of the last couple of years. And the notion of CGS Plus could certainly be without storage. So it kind of harkens back to the days of a really aggressive return on investment and then expansion as well. If we can say, if we can put some CTs in and say your approval is 4 kilowatts and we're going to add some more PV, but it can only, generate during the, up to 4 kilowatts, at a given moment peak, then that's kind of an understandable solution, I suppose, right? And it could be right around the corner. So that's very exciting stuff. So let's backtrack a little bit. I know that Enphase launched a modular storage system, the storage modules. Can you tell us a little bit about that and about the strategy around that?
Yeah, so absolutely happy to do that. So one of the things that Martin and team invented was that microinverter is actually a fully bidirectional device, which means it can be flow energy in both directions. You can go DC to AC and it acts like an inverter, or you can, in software, tell it, hey, go the other way.
That's convenient.
Take AC and convert it into DC. So I don't know, not many people know that, but that device is an ideal converter. It acts like an inverter or a charge controller, all done in software.
Right.
So we said, okay, we've got this device, we've got the communications, we've got all the software, and we know storage is coming. What's the best way to do storage? And we said, storage is done just like solar was done, in a very centralized manner. Lots of cells in series, just like a lot of photovoltaic cells in series, except these happen to be chemical cells in series, and one centralized power conversion. We said, well, does that make sense? Well, maybe not. Let's go back to a fully distributed architecture, and that's how we came up with the idea of we have a bidirectional device, let's embed that inside a handful of cells. There are only 8 cells in series, and that resulted in a very distributed storage solution, completely AC coupled, and that's how we entered the market. And basically, it's just, think about, we have this platform, this power conversion, communications, software platform. Solar is an application on that platform. Storage was the next application. It just became a very natural extension to what we're doing.
Absolutely, and I got to tell you, it's a very unique architecture in terms of on-grid solar plus storage, and it's something that got me really excited early on. And I talked with a handful of your staff at some of the trade shows, and we had some great kind of brainstorming discussions. And what I found interesting about it as a solar guy is that you have with Enphase you have a branch circuit that you line up your inverters on, right? And there's a maximum that you can do. In the case of the M250s, I think it was 16 or so, maybe, or 17, 16 or so so modules, right? And then, but if I understand correctly, you have this effectively very similar, like basically like a mirror image in a sense. You could have a mirror image in your garage, and you can have a X amount, similar maximum number of storage modules, right? So there's another circuit going out. It's maybe another maximum of what is the maximum roughly the same? Is it 16 or is it a different number?
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
The same microinverter.
So you have this kind of mirror image in my mind, right? And what's really cool about it is that it's modular in nature. So if you wanted to come in and just start out small, right? You could do that. You could start out small, and I'm sure if there's a certain minimum, but it's probably a minimum, and then you could say
one minimum is one.
Minimum so you could do,
there's the minimum.
You could do one panel and one storage if you have a 1 kilowatt-hour a day requirement for whatever.
There you go.
Yeah, and there you go.
Exactly.
And then you go, well, next year I want to do a little bit more because I've now I have a 2 kilowatt-hour day requirement. And you put in, but that modularity is so unique. That really, I just haven't seen that in any other environment, and that's very exciting. Now, one of the things that I really want to ask you about the storage modules is that it's positioned to function in a self-supply capacity. Now, why is it not positioned presently to function in a battery backup capacity? Can you help us better understand that?
Sure. So battery backup has been a constant, not a worry for us, but it's something that diverged from the grid-tied inverter capability, right? So grid-tied inverters, and we can have definitely technical discussion on that, is that grid-tied inverter typically are prohibited from injecting energy on the network when the network is dead, right? So the vast majority of solar inverters out there cannot inject energy anywhere if there is no grid, and they're actually prohibited from doing that by regulation, right? And the reason for that was for the safety of the linemen or people who are working on an installation, right? They assume you have some line falls down or something, the breaker pops, and you certainly don't want a bunch of solar installation pushing energy on that disconnected line, right? And be able to kill people because of that. So it was an early requirement to not be able to so-called island, which is a poorly chosen name in Hawaii, I guess, but not being able to island on an electrical point of view. Therefore, the vast majority of solar inverters cannot island and cannot provide energy when there is no grid.
Okay.
So because we didn't have to provide that functionality, we didn't put it in the original product, but about 4 years ago, we started really thinking hard on how we could actually do this. And by doing this, we needed to actually alleviate all the issues which exist in the existing off-grid inverters, right? So if you are familiar with an off-grid inverter, typically it's a specific device that is typically more expensive than a standard inverter and cannot really expand in capacity. Okay, so some off-grid inverters, you can actually add a couple of units next to it when you start from a given product, but that's typically it. You have a very limited range of expandability, and you certainly cannot work in conjunction with your neighbor either, right? Because all these devices require some kind of high-speed communication between devices to be able to have them work together.
Okay.
Or to form the grid.
Or to form a grid, right, together. And so because we are distributed in nature, it was actually very much harder for us to do a product that will work without requiring any kind of high-speed communication between devices. Right?
Okay.
So it was the problem at hand was just an order of magnitude more complex than just generating a standard off-grid inverter. So we had to think really hard about this one. And it turns out that there is an existing example of products that operate this way, and these products are power plant. If you take Hoover Dam doesn't need a high-speed communication product to cooperate with other power plants which are anywhere in this area, right? So what we end up doing is basically we took the essential algorithm inside a major power plant.
Okay.
And we miniaturized them to go on our chip.
Wow, so you took the entire grid and then considered it back down to a roof, right? This is amazing.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly, and so we basically created, like now, a roof with this new technology called ensemble technology. Looks like basically an array of 30 Hoover Dam generators that work together in unison hence the name, right?
And no high-speed communication between them, and they form the grid in a democratic manner with zero comms, and there is no it's a masterless system. There's no central control. There's nothing. So what that allows you to do is scale infinitely. So you can have a microgrid basically with one solar panel, one microinverter, or you can have a microgrid with 5,000 solar panels and 5,000 microinverters.
Or the entire island.
Or the entire island could be a microgrid. Right?
And this is Ensemble.
So
that's Ensemble, yes.
This is your 19. Is this a launch potentially in 2019? Is that correct?
Yes, that's the first. Yeah, I think publicly we have said it's the first half of 2019. We are already, obviously, as you can imagine, we are testing it. We are running through all the tests, and it takes us this long to finish all the reliability work, and there's a lot of software work to be done as well. Reliability work probably being the biggest element of it, but. Yeah, and the key here, what Martin mentioned, is we're not talking storage as yet. This is solar only. So just imagine a complete solar system that seamlessly goes between grid-tied and off-grid and back and forth.
That's remarkable, and I really I can't tell you how excited we are. And I love that sentence. You have a roof of Hoover dams, right? That's
30 Hoover dams.
That's amazing sentence here. So we're talking before we talk about storage. But is there some kind of an integration method with your storage modules in terms of Ensemble?
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be of course when we release this product, it will be a whole line of product, including the storage part, of course.
Got it.
What this system does is basically give you your own grid operating system that's going to operate your own grid like it was either completely independent or connected to the actually grid at large, right?
Whoa, this sounds remarkable.
We have to basically duplicate all the control systems that exist in the grid at large, like Hawaii Electrical Company will have, and we're doing that within your own house, right? And in a way that the homeowner doesn't need to know anything about it at all, right?
That's amazing. And I'll tell you what, this type of conversation is exactly the reason why we've been asked recently to try to expand our show from 1 hour to 2 hours, because we can talk with you fellas for the rest of Friday for sure. But just as my takeaway here, and we're going to wrap in a moment, and I can't thank you enough for your time today. It's really just a remarkable conversation, and there's so many more questions I think we both have for you. But my takeaway here is that you have the Ensemble program being released in 2019, first half of 2019, and that Hoover Dam, I think, sentence is going to get some play for us. And then there's also an integration with the storage modules. So does that mean that the storage module will be able to work in a battery backup capacity? Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. That's what we're looking for.
It suddenly becomes the always on system, meaning solar during the day, storage at night.
All right. I would like to submit that Maui Solar Project would be very happy to install the first one in Maui County, and when that does come out. And I really want to just say thank you so much for sharing this amazing kind of epic story of the birth of Enphase. A name that's in everyone's house right nowadays out here in Hawaii. Everyone knows it. It's a brand name that everybody knows, and getting us all the way and kind of doing the hard work, right? Doing the innovation for what we need out here to be able to continue to grow and get to 100% renewable energies. And there's some dialogue that we may be there a little bit sooner than we think. So perhaps the Ensemble program can be a big part of that process for us. So really want to thank you very much for your time today, and maybe we can see you again soon sometime. I hope maybe out here in Maui.
Absolutely,
we'd love it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Okay. Right. Aloha. Thanks so much, guys and gentlemen. I really appreciate it. So, everybody, this has been the SolarCoaster. We are a renewable energy themed talk show right here in lovely Maui County. We just had the co-founders of Enphase, Raghu Martin and Martin Fornage, on our show. All right, Jay.
Generally, we get to the end and we lose like one of our future focus segments. Today, we ran right to the end. Yeah. Fantastic story with these guys, right? I mean, can't believe it. Okay.
That was about the most future focused section I could imagine, right? So we are the renewable energy themed. We are SolarCoaster here, and it is basically
you're speechless.
I'm speechless.
You're
exactly
speechless.
right. You want to take over for me, Jay?
No problem.
It was that good of a show.
It really was. Thanks, Jonah. It's solar-coaster.com. Get on there. Fill out your questions. If you want to get all the past shows, it's on there as well. Hit like and subscribe. Love you guys.
Yeah. Don't forget about our sponsors, right? Mountain Solar Project, Tabuchi Electric America, Pika Energy, and Sonnen Battery. All right, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. Aloha.
Aloha.